Today, I want to talk about our great republic. 1787 was the year Ben Franklin walked out of the Constitutional Convention and was asked a question by Mrs. Elizabeth Willing Powell. What kind of government have we? And so famously, Ben Franklin said, "A republic if we can keep it." He said, "A republic, what does that mean?" Well, our republican form of government is one in which the people hold elections where they elect representatives to represent them in government. Government functions under the results of that constitutional convention, the United States Constitution. That was the original guardrails that helped to form the civilized society that we live in today. That Constitution then helped to create states. Those states then adopt their own constitutions. Then those states elect legislators as part of the republic. Those legislators then adopt laws that are called statutes. And those statutes is what creates the framework for local governance. And with certain issues that are of great interest today, things like artificial intelligence data centers, I get asked the question often, what is your opinion on them? Well, I sit on a legislative body of the county, and I sit on a plan commission. And if you read Title 36 of the Indiana Code, is 36-7-4-223. That first section under that says, if I get into a conversation whether I'm for or against something that I am in charge of making a zoning decision or a legislative decision on, I can be disqualified for bias or prejudice or the inability to be impartial. So when you ask me that question online, do not expect an answer, because you elected me to represent you in local government. And in order for me to do that, if I participate in this online discourse of offering my opinions on things that I have a vote on, it could disqualify me. Now, the Lake County Plan Commission under Indiana law is what's called an advisory plan commission, which means when zoning decisions are before the Plan Commission, it advises the legislative body, which in Lake County is the county council. Lake and St. Joseph County are the two counties in the state that share that distinction of the county council being both legislative and fiscal. In the rest of the state, the county commissioners are executive and legislative. So a little unique distinction in Lake County. Now, when I run for office, I run to represent the people in a certain district. The oath I take is to uphold the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the state of Indiana, and uphold those laws to the best of my skill and ability, and impartially and faithfully discharge those laws. So that's exactly what I'm doing, folks. I'm doing the job you hired me to do by the oath that I took to do it. And I hope that clears up some confusion here. Other members of governing bodies can offer all the opinions they want when they don't have a vote on something. Now, with an advisory plan commission, there are a couple different kinds. There's advisory, area, and metro. Area and metro plan commissions fall under a different set of rules. Advisory plan commissions allows for what are called ex parte communications to an extent, so long as it doesn't affect the impartiality of that member. So me having conversations with people who are activists against a certain issue is a form of communications that could be viewed as creating bias. I have communications with my constituents all over South Lake County about a number of issues. It does not impact my ability to execute my duties of my office. So I appreciate the passion that people have for this issue because it does matter. It's very important. But it's also important to remember that we live in a republic, and that republic has legal guardrails surrounding every level of government, and I have to operate within those. And I tell people often in my role as Republican chairman that you can win an office as an activist on one issue. You can, but it's almost impossible to govern as an activist because the governance requires working within the framework of statutes, constitutions, and federal laws and constitutions as well. So that creates a difficulty in being just an activist in office. The reason our founders formed a republic and not a democracy, a direct democracy, was pretty simple, actually. They believed that in order for government to function properly, the people had to empower representatives to work on their behalf within the governance framework. A direct democracy is basically a system where you have two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for lunch. And guess who gets eaten? The one without the sharp teeth, the loud bark, or all the muscles. That's not how we are in this country. The 51% don't always get to tell the 49% what their rights are. It's important to remember the constitutional duty of elected officials on every level of government. And what we can do on local government to make sure that the concerns that you raise about things like data centers are a part of local policy is used a little bit, and we just have a little bit of home rule left, to apply those things to things like we've done in Lake County with a special exception ordinance that creates the framework and the guardrails of the home rule implementation of things that help to protect the interest of the average individual who is very concerned about these things. I'm concerned about them as well. I'm still learning about them. And no, I don't believe 100% of what I see online. I never will. Because one thing I've learned about the online world is that the more you search for something, the more the algorithms adjust to your search and feed you exactly what you're looking for, creating an echo chamber. So the best thing is for a person in my position is to gather facts, listen to the people I represent, apply the concerns and questions to policy wherever I can within the framework of law, and to make sure that we govern fairly and impartially under the statutes, the state constitution, and the United States Constitution. So, folks, I'm doing my due diligence on this issue, and I'm going to continue to work hard at it. I hope you show up May 20th at the public hearing at Lake County Government Center, 5:30 p.m. at the auditorium. This is how to engage in government. It's not on online platforms trying to browbeat someone or threaten them into submission to give you their opinion. I took an oath of office. I'll uphold that oath of office. When I raised my right hand, I swore to those things. And that also includes communicating with all of you, listening to your input, and applying it to law. So thanks for listening. I hope this helps to clear up a few things and helps to understand why the process is what it is. We could not exist without this brilliant form of self-government that we have, where we operate within that civilized framework to treat everyone fairly under the law, preserve the liberties guaranteed to us in the Constitution, and treat each other fairly. God bless America.